Everywhere I go, the children rise. Everywhere I go, the children rise. I saw them just rise up, the wicked run. I saw them just rise up, the wicked run. Equal rights and justice, when I defend, we won't run away. Run away, run away, run away, run away. We won't run away. Run away, run away, run away, run away. If you go in America, if you go in Canada, if you go in Africa, I saw them just rise up, the wicked run. I saw them just rise up, the wicked run. I saw them just rise up, the wicked run. We won't run away. Run away, run away, run away, run away. We won't run away. Run away, run away, run away, run away. I get it, rolling to the people, yeah. The fire burn them wicked, wicked people, and the fire burn them wicked, wicked men. The fire burn them wicked, wicked friend. Fire burn on the wicked, burn on all of them. The fire burn them wicked, wicked country, and the fire burn the wicked, wicked town. The fire burn them wicked, wicked city. Fire burn on the wicked, burn them. When it's impossible to see what's become of our people in their life, they do it so much evil. We will wobble, a triple tongue and trouble them. Sell them soldiers to work for the devil. The judges say judgment will soon come when the walls of our sword once again can tumble down. Beautiful Nash, people them are more with judge you pour out these rocks and fire and bring soul. Fire burn them wicked, wicked people, and the fire burn the wicked, wicked men. The fire burn them wicked, wicked friend. Fire burn down the wicked, burn down all of them. They say the fire burn the wicked, wicked country. The fire burn the wicked, wicked town. The fire burn them wicked, wicked city. Fire burn down the wicked, burn on Babylon. You know the people them must suffer and the whole of the time bleed while you spread your lies and propaganda, sow your bloody seed. The children working, the fingers to the bone, and you pay all the money to some pretty face without a clothes. And your dream will come, it will come. Just say when you beg the hills for cover, but the hills will run away. When we listen, when we learn, it will too late to have forgiveness when you will begin to burn. The fire burn them wicked, wicked people. The fire burn the wicked, wicked men. The fire burn them wicked, wicked friend. Fire burn down the wicked, burn down all of them. And the arrow pressing, we shall overcome, but certain nations ought instead. I give a little and even shed the tears. Easy said in our daughters for some butter on the bread. The fathers giving their lives up to son, doing battle for the devil, warring for the wicked one. You might think this is just another song, but the blood you spill, you calling out a long way. The fire burn them wicked, wicked people. The fire burn the wicked, wicked men. The fire burn them wicked, wicked friend. Fire burn down the wicked, burn down all of them. They say fire burn them wicked. wicked, wicked people. Let the fire burn the wicked, wicked men. The fire burn your wicked, wicked friends. Fire burn your
Shalom and blessings to all my brothers and sisters, all my kinsmen according to the flesh, who are Israelites, to whom pertain the adoption and the glory and the covenants and the giving of the law and the service of Elohim and the promises, whose are the fathers, and of whom as concerning the flesh, our Mashiach came, who is over all Elohim blessed forever. Hallelujah and amen. I don't know about y'all, but that should inspire you every time you hear it. That's why I read it every time, to let us know who we are and to let us know what it is that pertains to us. Everything that's good, everything that pertains to salvation, everything that pertains to redemption belongs to us. Everything that pertains to representing the Most High belongs to us. So I want to give all praise, honor, and glory to our Heavenly Father, who is the sustainer of life, the sustainer of all things. All praises to his one and only begotten Son, Yehoshua Mashiach, our Lord, our Adonai, our King, our Redeemer. And all praises to the Ruach HaKodesh, the Holy Spirit, the divine essence, the Spirit of truth, the Spirit of comfort. One divine Elohim, all praises to the Most High. And I want to welcome everybody to this fellowship. This is, I believe, part 3 of the religious instruction of the Negro. We're going to be reading through that document some more. Before we get into anything, I want to salute the chat. Got my brother Darnell Blackshear in first place. As always, shalom. Good to see you. Got Shibria, my love. Shalom to you. Good to see you in the chat. Got Katrina Brown. Shalom to you. Hope all is well. Hope everybody had a good day today. Pretty laid back day. So, Brother Hadasai Ben Yah, shalom to you. Hope all is well. Sister Paula Lawrence out there in Australia with the brother Ralph. Hope y'all doing well. Good to see you in the chat. Got my brother Ty C. Rowland in the chat. Or if I'm mistaken, I don't know if Sister Paula Lawrence, if y'all relocated yet, but shalom to you in any case. Seeking the Most High, shalom to you. Hope all is well. Good to see you in the chat. Got Sister Rochelle. Shalom and blessings to you. Hope all is well. Brother Yash, I'll put the link in there. I should have put it in your email, but I was moving kind of fast. You want to chime in and read with me? Got Sister Devorah Cotton. Good to see you in the chat. Shalom to you. Got Kaya, daughter of Zion. Shalom to you. Good to see you in the chat. Hope you had a good day. She said they packing things up. So they ready to go. So hope all is well with that. Hope y'all have a smooth relocation process. I know how it is moving. You know, we had to go through it here recently ourselves and didn't even move too far, and that was hectic, you know. But, you know, in any case, anything you don't like doing, you're going to have a hard time doing it. But, you know, hopefully I'll get through it smoothly. Before we get into anything, I want to share my screen. Don't forget about the upcoming work, Supersessionism Part 1. That'll be next week, 6 days, live in 6 days, actually. So set your reminders for that. Also, share it with everybody that you know have an ear to hear, you know, brothers and sisters that you know are seeking, share with them, you know, and do all you can to do what the Bible say and declare the truth. I know I'm gonna try to do some things myself with that, but in any case, keep the brothers in your prayers for this work, you know, and hopefully everybody is edified by it. A lot of information gonna be brought out with this. And also, let me share my screen again. When you get a chance, go by and take a peek at the website. Website is up. So TRUEBREE.com, trueebree.com, Truth in Fashion. So you get a chance, go over and peek at that. You'll get a whole rundown on the background of what Ebree is about. And here in the near future, I'm gonna do a slideshow kind of breaking it down more to give brothers and sisters a better understanding, because if you're gonna be wearing something on your chest, you want to know what it's about, right? So it's a lot of merchandise up on the site for those you brothers and sisters interested in that. And the site is still being developed as we speak. You know, we're adding and changing things, but you know, feel free to go over and peek at it. Let us know what you think, you know, the whole thing. So that's that. Wanna thank you, brothers and sisters, in advance on that. Also, don't forget about our programs throughout the week with Kingdom Conversations hosted by Brother Cleo Wednesday nights. And you know, you brothers and sisters know about that. You know, that's another platform where we can come together and sort of fellowship and share thoughts. So let's strengthen that. And also, Wake Up Jacob Friday afternoons, hosted by yours truly. That's like I said, in the afternoons, Central Time, and 10 a.m. Pacific Time, 1 to 2 p.m. Eastern Time. And then you have the Friday night prayer fellowship, which is at 8:30 p.m. Central Time. And so a lot of brothers and sisters getting familiar with that. Also, Brother Hal Goodwin has a work coming up as well. So we're going to be letting brothers and sisters know about that, and keep him in your prayers as well to get that done. He actually briefed me on the work, and so I'm actually excited about it myself, to see that you got brothers coming out, you know, being encouraged to come out and do things for the family. So that's what we want to try to see more of and encourage more of. What's going on, Brother Yash?
All right.
All right.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Reading. I'm gonna take another break before we do, just to kind of give me a drink and everything. Like I said, I'm moving kind of fast before we got started. So, any thoughts, man, on what we getting into before we get started?
No, I'm just excited that we're back for another series on the religious instruction of the, you know, I forgot what it was called, man. I'm snatching my drink. Either way, on the religious instruction of the Negro, I guess. But because I find this very important. I was talking to my cousin earlier today, and he was bringing up some of his aspects of the truth. So I had to take him back to that letter of King Leopold of Belgium. and read what they were doing, just to remind him, because he knew about it, but he forgot. And when I reminded him, then he was ready to let go that old way of thinking, get back off that plantation. So this is very important, and I'm glad to be a part of it.
Absolutely. And also, don't forget, brothers and sisters, if you want a copy of what we're reading from, let us know via email, and we'll get you taken care of with that. I know a few people reached out yesterday concerning that document that you brought out, and so, like I said, man, that's a game changer in a lot of ways, and it makes it plain, and it validates a lot of what we were bringing out. But tonight we're gonna get a little deeper into the document, and some more things are gonna be revealed. All right, concerning the connection that our people had with the so-called Indians. And we all know about that history too. We may do a live just focused on that, focused on the history of our people connecting with the Native Americans, and how it is that our people believe that we are Native American and indigenous to this land. But it's a history behind that. And so a lot of that ties into what we dealing with today, but we're going to get into it. I want to thank you, brothers and sisters, for your time once again. This is a blessing and an honor to be able to share this stuff and to be able to do this work. And our prayer is that the Most High receives this as a free will offering, on our behalf. And he sees our work, and he has mercy on us, for the things that we do. And so sit tight, brothers and sisters, and we'll be right back. Shalom.
I'm bringing first fruits. Soon as it blooms, I'm bringing first fruits. You gave me the seeds and the garden. You bring the rain and the increase too. So I put a tree by the water, just like you always told me to. And I'm watching the stars as the heavens. I see every fruit, every flower too. And I'm putting them all in a basket and running it right back home to you. As soon as I get back home, I'm running right to your throne. Falling down on my knees like, Daddy, look at me. I'm bringing you first fruits. Soon as it blooms, I'm bringing you first fruits. I'm bringing you the first fruits. Soon as it blooms, I'm bringing you the first fruits. Found frankincense in your garden. I found the roses and lilies too. And I ate all of the old ones, but the beautiful ones I brought for you. I just want to thank you and praise you. Love you with all of my heart. I brought the right ones, sweet perfumes, showing you your work of art. As soon as I get back home, I'm running right to your throne. Falling down on my knees like, I be, look at me. I'm bringing you the first fruits. Soon as it blooms, I'm bringing you the first fruits. I'm bringing you the first fruits. Soon as it blooms, I'm bringing you the first fruits. Only for you.
Shalom and blessings, brothers and sisters. I want to once again thank you for chiming in. Let me go ahead and get my screen ready here. I'm going to pick it up where we left off. If you haven't already, brothers and sisters, please hit the like button and the share button. That'll be greatly appreciated. And to the brothers and sisters who listening or who will be listening on the playback, rather, hit the like and share button. That'll be greatly appreciated. And we thank you for your time. So we're going to be picking this up. Brother Yash, you want to let me know if you want to read some, man, because I'll read it all. But if you want to read some, let me know.
Yeah, I'll help you. Hey, what page is this on?
This is page 25.
Oh, okay. I was right there. I was just there. I am there. Yeah, right there. I'm looking at it. Yeah, I'll do that. You start off though.
Yeah, I'll start it off and then I'll let you know.
Yep.
All right. So if you want to be caught up to speed with where we are, feel free to go back and view the first two parts. These are letters that the heads of the European Christian churches are sending to the slave owners at their plantations that they established, their colonies that they established within the 13 colonies. They set their own church leaders and their own people up, and now these are just mandates that they're sending out to those leaders. And like I said, to be caught up to speed on that, feel free to go back and view the first two parts. Guarantee you it won't be a waste of your time. So here we are right here where the mark is. It says, let me change my highlight here. Shalom, Smitty. I see you in the chat, Smitty. What's going on? It says the Bishop of London's letter to the missionaries in the English plantations, exhorting them to give their assistance toward the instruction of the Negroes of their several parishes in the Christian faith. All right. If you see something that strike you, brother Yash, let me know too. If you want to chime in on something.
Yeah, I'll do that. Go ahead.
It says, good brother, having understood by many letters from the plantation and by the accounts of persons who have come from thence, that very little progress hath hitherto been made in the conversion of the Negroes to the Christian faith. I have thought it proper for me to lay before the masters and mistresses the obligations they are under to promote and encourage that pious and necessary work. This I have done in a letter directed to them, of which you will receive several copies in order to be distributed to those who have Negroes in your parish. And I must entreat you, when you put the letter into their hands, to enforce the design of it by any arguments that you shall think proper to be used, and also to assure them of your own assistance in carrying on the work. I am aware that in the plantations where the parishes are of so large extent, the care and labor of the parochial ministers must be great. But yet I persuade myself that many vacant hours may be spared from the other pastoral duties to be bestowed on this, and I cannot doubt of the readiness of every missionary in his own parish to promote and further a work so charitable to the souls of men and so agreeable to the great end and design of his mission. All right, so they were serious about this, sending out mandates and letters. And it said up here, it says, and I must entreat you when you put the letter into their hands to enforce the design of it by any arguments that you shall think proper to be used. So by any means necessary, get these mandates out and get this thing across. Yeah, brother Yash said the whip.
Hey, real quick. In that parochial, we went over it the other day of having to do with the church parishes. And that shows that all of this, no matter what Protestant denomination they may have been calling themselves at that time, they were all under, all these orders were directly from the Catholic Church.
And all their missionaries were pretty much the foot soldiers.
Exactly. But they were taking orders from the head.
So their whole mission was to be parochial in their approach.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So giving you a simplified, narrow-minded understanding of the gospel. And if you haven't seen that the letter that was brought out about King Leopold in part 2, go back and look at that. We may bring it out at the end if we have some time here. Like I said, for those who want that info, just email us and we'll get it to you. But give me a second here. All right. So here we are right here. It says, as to those ministers who have Negroes of their own, I cannot but esteem it their indispensable duty to use their best endeavors to instruct them in the Christian religion in order to their being baptized, both because such Negroes are their proper and immediate care, and because it is in vain to hope that other masters and mistresses will exert themselves in this work, if they see it wholly neglected or but coldly pursued in the families of the clergy, so that any degree of neglect on your part in the instruction of your own Negroes would not only be withholding from them the inestimable benefits of Christianity, but would evidently tend to the obstructing and defeating the whole design in every other family. So in other words, it's basically saying you have to break them down, because if you don't, they'll pretty much break everything else down. All right, you have to get them under full submission. So it says, so that any degree of neglect on your part in the instructing of your own Negroes would not only be withholding from them the inestimable benefits of Christianity, but would evidently tend to the obstructing and defeating the whole design in every other family. So what would have been the benefits of Christianity on our part? Because they made it clear that baptism and, converting wouldn't change the condition or the status that you were in. What'd you think, Brother Yash?
Yeah, I think I think what he really was saying was that as long as they converted us to Christianity, they would always be able to benefit off of us. You know, one, us not rising up against us, but two, that it'll keep them. As long as we're in sin, they're always able to benefit, and that's what I believe.
Let's see if we can get some more, because whatever the benefit was couldn't have been to our own benefit, or
Right.
like I said, their understanding of the gospel and everything was uh freedom from Satan, freedom from sin, but they were pagans themselves. Let's see if we can get some more. It said, I would also hope that the schoolmasters in the several parishes, part of whose business it is to instruct youth in the principles of Christianity, might contribute somewhat towards the carrying on in this work by being ready to bestow upon it some of their leisure time. So they want people to donate their own resources, time, and energy to fulfilling this mission of Christianizing the Negroes. It says, and especially upon the Lord's Day, remember what that was, when both they and the Negroes are most at liberty, and the clergy are taken up with the public duties of their function. And though the assistance they give to this pious design should not meet with any reward from men, in other words, y'all ain't gonna get paid for it, for the work and all this stuff we want you to do, yet their comfort may be that it is the work of God and will assuredly be rewarded by him. And the less they are obliged on this, and the less they are obliged to this on account of any reward they receive from men, the greater will their reward be from the hands of God. So check this out, Brother Yash. How can we get mad if they promising us the sweet by and by when they promising it to their own people right here? In other words, don't expect anything from men for this. God gonna bless you.
Mm-hmm.
That's the sweet by and by. If that's all they could give their own people, then what more could they give us?
Yeah, right.
Say, I must therefore entreat you to recommend it to them in my name, and to dispose them by all proper arguments and persuasions, to turn their thoughts seriously to it, and to be always ready to offer and lend their assistance at their leisure hours. All right. Wonder what all that meant. Your assistance,
Leisure.
like at their leisure hours. But what assistance, like, are they supposed to be opening the Bible and just teaching Negroes? What kind of assistance was this?
Yeah, right.
It says, and so not doubting your ready and zealous concurrence in promoting this important work, and earnestly begging and blessing from God upon this and all your other pastoral labors, I remain your affectionate friend and brother. All right. So if you want to, you can pick it up from here, Brother Yash.
Yeah. Now, oh yeah, okay, I'm not reading. Okay, it says Dean Stanhope of Canterbury states in his sermon of 1714 that success Success had attended the efforts of the society and speaks of children, servants, and slaves catechized, whatever that means.
That's let's look it up real quick. Hold on.
Yeah, catechized.
I'm gonna stop sharing this. Hold on. Let me pull it up real quick.
Yeah.
Fine. All right, let me pull it up.
Oh.
It's what I like to do when I'm reading. I come across words I don't know what they mean. Catechize, instruct someone in the principles of Christian religion by means of question and answer, typically by using catechism. All right, so let me go to another one. Catechize is a verb to give oral instruction, especially of religion, now specifically by the formal question and answer method. In the Church of England, to teach the catechism as preparation for confirmation. All right. So it's basically, to catechize is basically a way of conditioning you and then testing you on that conditioning to see if you picked up that condition. You get it?
Yeah. And also another definition is to interrogate.
Yeah. The formal question and answer method. All right, so let's go back.
Okay, Bishop Berkeley, right there. Yeah, Bishop Berkeley was in the colony of Rhode Island from 1728 till late in 1730, and he also preached a sermon before the society on February 18th, 1731, in which he thus speaks of the Negroes. The Negroes in the government of Rhode Island are about half as many more than the Indians, and both together scarce amount to a seventh part of the whole colony. The religion of these people is as natural to suppose takes after that of their masters. Some few are baptized, several frequent the different assemblies, and the far greater part none at all.
All right, so I wanna highlight a date, 1731. All right, because we know the Negroes, the history behind them leaving the plantations and going amongst the Indians. So we got a date here as early as 1731, and it's some dates earlier than that, but this is about 100 years, right over 100 years from the time that our people were brought here, and it's saying that they were already assimilated, basically already connected. But you can go ahead.
It says, okay, and ancient antipathy to the Indians, whom it seems our first planters, therein, as in certain other particulars, affecting to imitate Jews rather than Christians.
All right, so we hear all of this history about Indians and their connection to Hebrew and how they have artifacts and all of this, when really the truth is, whatever Hebrew they understood, they got it from our people.
Right. Yeah, I believe our people, when they were assimilating with them from the earliest of times, they was teaching them our ancient customs that they brought over with them, mixed with some of the things that they learned in Africa, but they was teaching. And it was obvious to these I don't know what I want to call them, colonizers, that's the word I was looking for, that they were the customs of the Jews.
And that's why it says an ancient antipathy in the Indians, whom it seems are first planters, therein as in certain other particulars affecting to imitate Jews rather than Christians. Right. You can go ahead.
Mm-hmm. He says, imagine they had a right to treat on the feet of Canaanites or Amalekites, together with an irrational concept of the blacks.
Contempt
of the blacks as creatures of another species who had no right to be instructed or admitted to the sacraments, have proved a main obstacle to the conversion of these poor people.
So, in other words, the Indians served as a deterrent, another deterrent from the Negroes converting to Christianity.
And not only that, the ancient customs, or the customs of the Hebrew custom, was preventing them to from even thinking about trying to join on that. And I think that's why, for earlier in the letter, he said, persuade them by whatever means necessary.
Yep. Notice this. I don't know if it's making a separation between the Jews and the Negroes, but then it said they imitate Jews rather than Christians. So how are they doing that?
Exactly.
You can go ahead.
He says, to this. Where am I? Oh, yeah.
Right here.
Yeah. Okay. The contempt of the blacks as another creature of another species, no right to be instructed, admitted to sex. It said, to this may be added an erroneous notion that the being baptized is inconsistent with the state of slavery. To undeceive them in this particular, which had too much weight, it seemed a proper step. Let me go to my friend. Where we at?
Right here.
I lost myself. I was reading from the screen. A proper step, if the opinion of His Majesty's Attorney and Solicitor General could be procured. This opinion they charitably sent over, signed with their own hands, which was accordingly printed in the Rhode Island and dispersed through the plantations. I heartily wish it may produce the intended efforts.
Intended effect.
Damn, I can't read tonight. This little screen is killing me. Hold on, let me make my thing bigger. There you go. It must be owned, our reformed planters, with respect to the natives and the slaves, might learn from the Church of Rome. See what I was saying?
Yeah.
How it is in their interest and duty to behave. Both French and Spaniards take care to instruct both them and their Negroes in the popish religion, to the reproach of those who profess a better. From a proposal to establish a college in Bermuda, first published in 1725, the bishop remarks, now the clergy sent over to America have proved too many of them very meanly qualified, both in learning and morals, for the discharge of their office. And indeed, little can be expected from the example or instruction of these, who quit their native country on no other motive than that they are not able to procure a livelihood in, which is known to be too often the case.
So what did that just say?
That said, it said what we always say. They couldn't even make it in their own homeland.
Exactly.
So that's why they had to go about to other places where they have freedom to rape, pillage, kill, and steal. Because that's the only way they can live.
They sent the poor people from their country. They just shipped them over here and gave them land. Just gave them stuff. They couldn't survive in their own country. And so he's basically telling them that little can be expected from the example or instruction of those who quit their native country on no other motive than that they are not able to procure a livelihood in it, which is known to be often the case. That's why you hear a lot of them say they come from poor, their parents was poor, their great-great-grandparents was poor, and all this kind of stuff. You got it.
It says, to this may be imputed the small care that have been taken to convert the Negroes of our plantations, who, to the infamy of England and the scandal of the world, continue heathen under Christian masters, and in Christian countries, which would never be if our planners were rightly instructed and made sensible that they disappointed their own baptism by denying it to those who belong to them, that it would be of advantage to their affairs to have slaves who should obey in all things their masters, according to the flesh, not with eye service of men pleasers, but in singleness of heart, as fearing God. That gospel of liberty consists with temporal servitude. Okay, and that their slaves would only become better slaves by being Christians. That's Berkeley's works, copied by RWWL.
It says that gospel of liberty consists with temporal servitude. Remember what they said our temporal things were.
Mm-hmm.
Our offspring, our strength, and our spirits. To them, those are our temporal things. But he said, and that their slaves would only become better slaves by being Christians. All right. We'll pick it up.
That's funny. In 1741, Archbishop Secker, after enumerating other successes, adds, in less than 40 years, great multitudes on the whole of Negroes and Indians brought over to the Christian faith. Bishop Drummond in 1754 notices the Negroes in his sermon before the society and insists upon the duty and safety of giving them the gospel. The amiable Porteous, 1783, when Bishop of Chester, afterwards Bishop of London, took a lively interest in this work and preached a sermon before the society in support of it, which may be found in his works. So they was preaching on the progress that they were having in converting the slaves over there in the islands to Christianity. Or bragging.
Yeah.
In the year 1783 and the following, soon after the separation of our colonies from the mother country, the society's operations ceased, leaving in all the colonies 43 missionaries, 2 of them who were in the southern states, 1 in the north and 1 in South Carolina. The affectionate valediction of the society to them was issued in 1785, thus terminating the connection of this. And I got to stop for a second. You notice how they've got it down to the dates. They got a timeline.
Yep.
Of the work. Yeah.
Works is dated.
Mm-hmm. And thus terminated the connection of this noble. Okay.
You remember the first session we did when it first talked about all of the efforts, how he traveled and then came back and made note of all of his works.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, man, that sound like what the apostles did almost.
Yeah.
So this is a whole completely different thing being put on us, but you got it.
It said, thus terminated the connection of this noble society with our country, which from the foregoing notices of its efforts must have accomplished a great deal for the religious instruction of the Negro population. Thus, it is perceived that the Negroes were not forgotten by the Church of Christ in England. Were they remembered by the Church of Christ in the colonies themselves? We have no record of missions or of missionary stations established by or in any of the colonies in behalf exclusively of the Negroes up to the year 1738.
In other words, they don't know what's going on or what happened after that point in terms of the Negroes, but they know that basically saying we haven't forgotten. You know, this is where they were sending all of their leaders from England over to these colonies and sending these letters from there over to these colonies. So they like, okay, were they remembered over there in these colonies though? You know, they put a question mark.
Mm-hmm. It says 1738, the Moravian or the United Brethren were the first who formally attempted the establishment of missions exclusively to the Negroes. A succinct account of their several efforts down to the year 1790 is given in the report of the Society for the Propagation of the Gospel among the Heathen at Salem, North Carolina, October 5th, 1837, by Reverend J. Renatus Schmidt, and is as follows. 100 years has now eclipsed since the renewed Church of the Brethren first attempted to communicate the gospel to the many thousand Negroes of our land. In 1737, Count Zinzendorf, I heard that name before, paid a visit to London and formed an acquaintance with General Oglethorpe and the trustees of Georgia, with whom he conferred on the subject of the missions to the Indians, which the Brethren had already established in that colony in 1735. Some of these gentlemen were associates under the will of Dr. Bray, who had left funds to be devoted to the conversion of the Negro slaves in South Carolina, and they solicited the Count to procure them some missionaries for this purpose on his objection that the Church of England might hesitate to recognize the ordination of the Brethren's missionaries. They referred the question to the Archbishop of Canterbury. Dr. Potter, who gave it as his opinion that the Brethren, being members of an Episcopal church whose doctrines contained nothing repugnant to the 39 articles, ought ought not to be denied free access to the heathen. They was calling us heathen.
So in other words, none of their doctrine was against anything that they was establishing.
Yeah, I think those were the 39 things that Martin Luther pinned on the door of the Catholic Church, which started the which started the Protestant Reformation.
Said they are not to be denied free access to the heathen. You got it.
It says this declaration not only removed all the hesitation from the minds of the trustees as to the present application, but opened the way for the labors of the brethren amongst the slave population of the West Indies. A great and blessed work, which has, by the great gracious help of God, gone on increasing even to the present day.
And you notice a lot of the brothers and sisters over in those places, they real set on Christianity.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. You know how they say pray for the islands, man. It's Christianity has a stronghold on it.
Yeah. You want to go some more? Or you want me to pick it up?
Yeah, I'm gonna go a little more and then I'll let you pick it up.
All right.
He said the same year, Brother Peter Bowler was deputed to commence the desired mission with Brother George Schulius as his assistant. They set out by the way of London in February 1738 and repaired in the first instance to Georgia, hoping to be provided with the means for the prosecution of their journey by the colony of the Brethren already established there. Obstacles, however, being interposed through the interested views of certain individuals, this mission failed, and our brethren, settling at Purisburg, took charge of the Swiss colonists and their children in that town. Georgia not being at that period a slaveholding colony. In 1739, Schulius departed this life, and Peter Bowler immigrated in 1740 to Pennsylvania with the whole Georgia colony, of which he was minister, because they were required to bear arms in war against the Spaniards, which had recently broken out. And in 1747 and 1748, some brethren belonging to Bethlehem undertook several long and difficult journeys through Maryland, Virginia, and the borders of North Carolina in order to preach the gospel to the Negroes, who, generally speaking, received it with eagerness.
So where was Bethlehem?
That's Pennsylvania.
Okay.
I thought of Bethlehem still. And see, I'm getting the picture that they were receiving this gospel with eagerness, probably thinking that if they became Christians, either their masters would set them free or at least show favor to them.
Yeah.
You know, because we even have that spirit in Christianity today. When you go to the church, you feel more like I had a black church, and I ain't happy. I mean, I used to go a pretty large church, and it's like when the white folk used to come on up to visit, or white people used to come and join our churches, it's like you the coon come out of you, and you want to be extra nice, and it's sort of like a reverse frame of mind where when as long as they're coming in and they can accept your gospel, it's sort of like gave you a legitimacy that we're not like the other Negroes type mindset.
Yeah, I know sometimes you kind of get caught up in that, but with me, I'm more so just kind of different from that. But
Yeah,
I know back then, like you said, a lot of our people were under one belief, but then when you read these letters are kind of on some after the fact type of stuff. Like it was clear that the slaves was already, well, I don't even say slaves. It was clear that our forefathers were reluctant in a lot of ways of receiving the Christian gospel. So they had to go about ways of making it appealing,
yeah,
and that was probably one of the ways, because they mentioned that a lot of our people were they caught on quickly, but one of the barriers they had was the language, but they caught on quickly, but their plan was to use those Negroes as a means of converting other Negroes.
yeah. Let me read a little more.
Yeah.
It said, various proprietors, however, avowing their determination not to suffer strangers to instruct their Negroes, as they had their own ministers, the slave Bible, that is, whom they paid for that purpose, they paid them. Our brethren ceased from their efforts. It appears from the letters of the brother Spangenberg, who spent the greater part of the year 1749 at Philadelphia and preached the gospel to the Negroes in that city, that the labors of the brethren amongst them were not entirely fruitless. Thus he writes in 1751, on my arrival in Philadelphia, I saw numbers of Negroes still buried in all their native ignorance and darkness, and my soul was grieved for them. Soon after, some of them came to me requesting instruction, at the same time acknowledging their ignorance in the most affecting manner. In other words, they really couldn't read, and I think they were trying to learn how to read. They begged that a weekly sermon might be delivered expressly for their benefit. I complied with their request and confined myself to the most essential truths of scriptures. Servants, obey your masters. Upwards of 70 Negroes attended these occasions, whatever that is, of whom several of whom were powerfully awakened, applied for further instruction, appealed for further instruction, and expressed a desire to be united to Christ and his church by the sacrament of baptism, which was accordingly administered to them.
You're going to serve other gods.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to, because we wouldn't serve the Most High with joyfulness and gladness of heart. You're going to serve your enemies in hunger, nakedness, and in thirst, and in want of our food.
Amen. At the Provincial Synod, which is held in Pennsylvania which was in 1747, Brother Christian Frolic was commissioned to take charge of the Negroes of New York, who had evinced a great desire for the gospel, and of whom several had been already won for the Redeemer, Christian folly, by means of their attendance on the ministry of the word. And in 1751, he visited the scattered Negroes, the scattered tribes in New Jersey, by whom he was everywhere received with joy, and preached Christ crucified to 100 of them at once with considerable effect, besides conversing with them at their work. A painting is preserved at Bethlehem in which the 18 first fruits from the heathen who had been brought to Christ by the instrumentality of the brethren and had departed in the faith prior to the year 1747 are represented dressed in their native costume and standing before the throne of Christ with palms in their hands, with the inscription beneath, "These are redeemed from among men, being the first fruits unto God and to the land." Amongst the number are Johannes, a Negro of South Carolina, and Jupiter, a Negro from New York. The graves of colored Christians who have died in the Lord are also met with several of our burial grounds in North American congregations. At the request of Mr. Knox, the English Secretary of State, an attempt was made to evangelize the Negroes of Georgia. In 1774, the brethren Louis Muller of the Academy at Niesky and George Wagner were called to North America, and in the year following, having been joined by brother Andrew Brosing of North Carolina, and they took up their abode at Knoxboro, a plantation so called from its proprietor, the gentleman above mentioned. They were, however, almost constant sufferers from the fevers, Most High was plaguing them, which prevailed in those parts. And Muller finished his course in October of the same year. He had to preach the gospel with acceptance to both whites and blacks, yet without any abiding results. The two remaining brethren being called upon to hear arms, he must have been terrible. The two remaining brothers being called upon to hear arms on the breaking out of the War of Independence, Brosing repaired to Wachovia in North Carolina, and Wagner set out in 1779 for England.
So all this was happening during the war.
Yeah, the Revolutionary War. In the Great Northampton Revival, under preaching of Dr. Edwards in 1735 and 6, when for the space of 5 or 6 weeks together, the conversions averaged at least 4 a day, Dr. Edwards remarked, "There are several Negroes who, from what was seen in them then and what is discernible in them since, appear to have been truly born again in the late remarkable season." At a meeting of the General Association of the Colony of Connecticut in 1738, it was inquired whether the infant slaves of Christian masters may be baptized in the right of their masters, they solemnly promising to train them in the nurture and admonition of the Lord, and whether it is the duty of such masters to offer such children, and thus religiously to promise. Both questions were affirmatively answered. Records as reported by Reverend C.H. Chapin, D.D., of the condition of the Negroes about this time in New England, it has been said their lot was far from being severe. They were often brought by conscientious persons for the purpose of being well instructed in the Christian religion. They had universally the enjoyment of the Sabbath as a day of rest or of devotion. Looking over the old record of entreaties for the publications, i.e. marriages, within the town of Boston, I observed the following among others. 1707, Negro, Essex, a Negro man of Mr. William Clark, Esquire, Juano R. Wallenthorpe, whatever. Negro, Will, registered servant of William Webster. Betty, registered servant of William Keene, March 9th, 1710. Negroes, Charles and Peggy, Negro servants of Mr. James Barnes, July 19th. Negro, Jack, Negro servant of Sam L. Bill. Esther, Negro servant of Robert Guthridge, October 27th, by which it would appear that the community was not indifferent to their condition inasmuch as their marriages were public and legalized.
So these are marriage records.
Yeah.
Slave marriage records.
In 1747, direct efforts for the religious instruction of Negroes continued through a series of years were made by Presbyterians in Virginia. They were commenced with the Reverend Samuel Davies, afterwards president of Nassau Hall, and the Reverend John Todd of Hanover Presbytery. I want to stop right there. Brother Cleo earlier mentioned a John Todd.
Yeah.
He was the direct descendant of this John Todd. This John Todd, the Reverend, was presided over the Salem witch trials. And he said that his family, this is an Illuminati family. And this family, this Reverend John Todd, they were really the witches, and they were killing Christians whom they accused of witchcraft. Just a little sidebar.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Okay, it says Mr. Davis began his ministry in Hanover in 1747 and left Virginia about 1773 or 4. That's crazy. But anyway, Mr. Davies, 4 or 5 years after his settlement in Hanover, found it impossible to afford even a monthly supply of preaching to the congregations organized by him. Accordingly, he sought an assistant in Mr. John Todd, a young preacher from Pennsylvania, who was installed in the upper part of Hanover, November 12, 1752. In a letter addressed to a friend and member of the Society in London for promoting Christian knowledge among the poor. In the year 1755, he thus expresses himself: the poor, neglected Negroes who are so far from having money to purchase books that they themselves are the property of others, who were originally African savages and never heard of the name of Jesus or his gospel until they arrived at the land of their slavery in America, whom their masters generally neglect and whose souls none care for, as though immortality were not a privilege in common to them, as with their masters. These poor, unhappy Africans are objects of my compassion, and I think the most proper objects of this society's charity. The inhabitants of Virginia are computed to be about 300,000 men, one half of which number are supposed to be Negroes. The number of those who attend my ministry at particular times is uncertain, but generally about 300 who give a stated attendance, and never have I been so struck with the appearance of an assembly as when I have glanced my eye to that part of the meeting house where they usually sit in the back of the bus, adorned, for so it has appeared to me, with so many black countenances, eagerly attending to every word they hear, and frequently bathed in tears.
Wow.
And it wasn't about the, I don't think it was more about the preaching. I think some of those words in there was registering with their souls. And they was probably saying, dang. A considerable number of them, about 100, have been baptized after a proper time for the instruction, having given credible evidence not only of their acquaintances with the important doctrines of the Christian religion, but also a deep sense of them in their minds, attested by a life of strict piety and holiness. In other words, they had to prove that they were not a threat. That's what that means.
Yeah, they thought they were savages, so they had to basically, like with catechism, you know, and the parochial teaching, where all that came in, plus the forceful things that they did.
Mm-hmm. It says, as they are not sufficiently polished to dissemble with a good grace, they express the sentiments of their souls so much in the language of simple nature and with such genuine indications of sincerity. We're not going to beat you, Master. That
Yeah.
it is impossible to suspect. See, listen, that it is impossible to suspect their professions, especially when attended with a truly Christian life and exemplary conduct.
Yeah.
There are multitudes of them in different places who are willing and eagerly desirous to be instructed and embrace every opportunity of acquainting themselves with the doctrines of the gospel. And though they have generally very little help to learn to read, still ain't want them to learn to read, yet to my agreeable surprise, many of them, by dint of application in their leisure hours, have made such progress that they can intelligibly read a plain author, and especially their Bible. And pity it is that any of them should be without them. Mr. Davies furnished the Negroes with what books he could procure for them, and I requested a supply from the Society of Bibles and Watts Psalms and Hymns. Having received a supply, he distributed them to the great joy of the Negroes. The books were all very acceptable, but none more so than the Psalms and Hymns. See, they was in the David, which enabled them to gratify their peculiar taste for psalmody.
So it's like the New Testament with the Psalms and the Proverbs.
Yeah, right. And they was taking them, reading them Psalms. Sundry of them have lodged all night in my kitchen, and sometimes when I have awakened about 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning to make sure they ain't stealing no biscuits, a torrent, you know what I'm saying? A torrent of sacred harmony was poured into my chamber and carried my mind away to heaven. Quick, hide the biscuits.
But then too, they're noticing a move of the spirit with our people. They wasn't getting this result. But they're noticing a move of the spirit with our people in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Just like how they try to mimic now, you know, like how they look at how the Black Christian church operate, and you see a lot of that mechanism is in the white churches now.
That's exactly what that was. Rachel Yah's daughter said they were singing Kumbaya. Exactly.
Yep.
In this seraphic exercise, in other words, they sounded like the angels, seraphims. Some of them spend almost the whole night.
Wow.
He said, I wish, sir, you and other benefactors could hear some of these sacred concerts.
Wow, you hear that? You see that?
They ain't never. He says, I am persuaded it would surprise and please you more than an oratorio or a Saint Cecilia's Day.
Wow.
He observes the Negroes, above all human species that I ever knew, have an ear for music and a kind of exotic delight in psalmody. And there are no books they learn so soon or take so much pleasure in as in those used in that heavenly part of divine worship.
In other words, they got mesmerized and hypnotized by hearing the voices in the songs that our people were singing.
Yeah, Judah never loses his praise.
Like a whole bunch of Mahalia Jacksons.
I'm telling you. Listen. On one sacramental occasion, he had the pleasure of seeing 40 of them around the table of the Lord, all of whom made a credible profession of Christianity, and several of them gave unusual evidence of sincerity. And he believed that more than 1,000 Negroes attended his ministry at different places where he alternately officiated. Mr. Davies writes, Dr. Bellamy in 1757, what little success I've lately had has been chiefly among the extremes of the gentlemen and Negroes. Indeed, God has been remarkably working among the latter. I have baptized about 150 adults, and at the last sacramental solemnity, I had the pleasure of seeing the table graced with about 60 black faces. They generally behave well, as far as I can hear, though there are some instances of apostasy among them. In other words, there's some of them brothers with he had some Nat Turners in the group. You know, some of them mugs was reading Psalms. You know what I mean? They was hitting them with the wrong Psalms.
But then he's obviously expressing a level of distrust to a degree.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he got to watch them and make sure they really sincere.
Yeah. Are you really sincere? Do you really believe?
So they won't do nothing slick, you know.
Mm-hmm. He said the county in which Mr. Davies labored were Hanover, Henrico, Goochland, Caroline, and Louisa. The Society for Propagating the Gospel in Foreign Parts, already noticed in 1745, established a school in Charleston, South Carolina, under the direction of Commissary Garden. It flourished greatly and seemed to answer their utmost wishes. It had at one time 60 scholars sent forth annually, about 20 young Negroes, well instructed in the English language and the Christian faith. This school was established in St. Philip's Church, and some of its scholars were living in 1822, of orderly and decent characters. That's like B.P. Meade and Dr. Doucher. The year 1747 was marked in the colony of Georgia by the authorized introduction of slaves. 23 representatives from the different districts met in Savannah, and after appointing Major Morton president, they entered into sundry resolutions, the substance of which was that the owners of slaves should educate the young and use every possible means of making religious impressions upon the minds of the age, and that all acts of inhumanity, should be punished by civil authority.
1764, the Reverend Ezra Stiles, D.D., afterwards president of Yale College, and Dr. Samuel Hopkins, undertook the education of 2 apparently promising Negroes with the view of the ministry, but it was finally a failure, Dr. Plumer reports.
So it said he undertook the education of 2 apparently promising Negroes, but it turned into a failure.
But they went straight to Deuteronomy chapter 28. No. Lynch him. 1770.
They acted like some good ones.
Yeah, they did. But they just couldn't resist those prophecies. 1770. While Dr. Stiles was a pastor in Newport, Rhode Island, there were many African slaves in that town. Of 80 communicants in his church in that town, 7 were Negroes. These occasionally met by his direction for religious improvement in his study. Methodism was introduced into this country in New York in 1776, and the first missionaries were sent out by Mr. Wesley in 1769. One of these, Mr. Pillmore, in a letter to Mr. Wesley from New York in 1770 says, "The number of blacks that attend the preaching affects me much. The first regular conference was held in Philadelphia, 1773. Number of ministers 10, and of members 1160. From this year to 1776, there was a great revival of religion in Virginia under the preaching of the Methodists in connection with Reverend Mr. Jarrett of the Episcopal Church, which spread through 14 counties in Virginia, and 2 in North Carolina." One letter states, "The chapel was full of white and black. Another, hundreds of Negroes were among them, with tears streaming down their faces." At Roanoke, see, they're in this church and they're preaching, and these people thinking that they have tears of joy from their sermons, when I would assume that these were tears of that they finally got some relief, and tears of knowing that after this service is over, I'm going back to the same damn fields.
Exactly. You can already see what they were teaching them. And so our people were coming into this with hopes of something else or other objectives. Yep.
He says, at Roanoke, another remarks, in general, the white people were within the chapel and the black people without. So they had to listen outside the church. Yeah, in the sun.
Yep.
1780, at the 8th conference in Baltimore, the following question appeared in the minutes. Question 25. Ought not the assistant to meet the colored people himself and appointed as helpers in his absence proper white persons, and not suffer them to stay late and meet by themselves? Answer, yes. Under the preaching of Mr. Garrison in Maryland. Hundreds of both white and blacks expressed their love for J.C. 1786. The first return of the colored members distinct from white occurs in the minutes of that year, and then yearly afterwards. White, 18,791. Colored, 1,890. It will be perceived from the above, says Dr. Bangs, in his history of the Methodist Episcopal Church that a considerable number of colored persons had been received into the church and were so returned in the minutes of the conference. Hence, it appears that an early period of the Methodist ministry in this country, it had turned its attention to this part of the population. Mr. Rankin, writing on the general state of Methodism in the colonies at the commencement of hostilities, observes in May 1777, the hostilities was the war. We had 40 preachers in different circuits and about 7,000 members in the society, besides many hundreds of Negroes who were convinced of sin, and many of them happy in the love of God. Life of Coke, 53. And the reason why the numbers were so low, because these were only the ones who were given that break on a Sunday. You know, maybe their masters was a little more serious about Christianity, even though they were wicked. So they was allowing them to go to church.
Yeah. And a lot of this was under English influence too.
Yeah.
So these were the proper white folks.
Right. In the year 1786, the following case of conscience was overturned from Donegal Presbytery in the Synod of New York and Philadelphia, namely, whether Christian masters or mistresses ought in duty to have such children baptized as are under their care, though born of parents not in the communion of any Christian church.
Talking about the black infants.
Right. The bastard children. Upon this overture, the Synod are of opinion that move it up some. Oh yeah, that Christian masters and mistresses, you need to underline mistresses,
masters and mistresses,
whose religious professions and conduct are such as to give them a right to the ordinance of baptism for their own children, may and ought to dedicate the children of their household to God in that ordinance when they have no scruple of conscience to the contrary.
So in other words, if they don't suspect them, said Christian masters and mistresses whose religious professions and conduct to give them a right to the ordinance of baptism for their own children, may and ought to dedicate the children of their household to God in that ordinance when they have no scruple of conscience or the contrary. So if we don't suspect niggas up to something.
Yeah, no, their mistresses was really their concubines. That's what it was about. And they was having a lot of mulatto children, and they wasn't taking them, you know, and they was having a what they called it, the great argument. So I guess it started a controversy in this church. Like, whoa, hold on here. You know, what have we here? You know? And on the next page, 414, it was overturned. Whether Christian slaves having children at the entire direction of unchristian masters, see what I mean? And not having it in their power to instruct them in religion, are bound to have them baptized. And see, they was considering, because these mugs was raping these women and having all these kids from them, and they were Christians, but they was considering them not Christian.
They called them unchristian masters.
Yeah, unchristian. But they were straight up Christian. That's why they were taking them children to church. And they was like, nah. Anyway.
It did mention the mulattoes in the beginning.
Mm-hmm. It says to have them baptized. And whether a gospel minister in his predicament ought to baptize. And they called it a predicament. The synod determined the question in the affirmative, where they said, yeah. 1787, the minutes of the Methodist Conference for this year furnished the following questions and answers, indicative of continued interest in the colored population. Question 17. What direction shall we give for the promotion of the spiritual welfare of the colored people? Answer. We conjure all our ministers and preachers by the love of God and the salvation of souls, and do require them by all the authority that is invested in us to leave nothing undone for the spiritual benefit and salvation of them within their respective circuits or districts, and for this purpose to embrace every opportunity of inquiring into the state of their souls, and to unite in society those who appear to have a real desire of fleeing from the wrath to come, to meet such in class, and to exercise the whole Methodist discipline among them. Number of colored members, 3,893.
Spiritual benefits.
Yeah, to flee from the wrath to come. See, because they was feeling that wrath.
Yeah.
Ours was the wrath. We was living that wrath. They were just feeling it to come. Okay,
Well,
17.
Their wrath to come was remember their whole deal behind Christianity was freedom from sin.
Yeah. Right.
So it's all spiritual.
1790 again. Question. What can be done in order to instruct poor children, white and black, to read? Answer. Let us labor as the heart and soul of one man to establish Sunday schools in or near the place of public worship. Let persons be appointed by the bishops, elders, and deacons or preachers to teach gratis all that will attend and have a capacity to learn, from 6 o'clock in the morning till 10, and from 2 p.m. till 6, where it does not interfere with public worship. The council shall compile a proper school book to teach them learning and piety. The experiment was made, but it proved unsuccessful and was discontinued. Number of colored members this year, 11,682. And so I figured, go ahead.
You almost tripled the number you had, and still none of them can read. Still none of them really understand.
Right. And what I figured, he said it was unsuccessful. What I figured was all the black people were sending their kids, and none of them white folk was. You see, that's why that number tripled. And they said, we can't do this. You got to read between the lines when it comes. See, because back it up a bit. Right there. It said, it says, let the persons, you was right there, be appointed by the bishops and elders and deacons or preachers. It says to teach gratis. It says all that will attend.
Yeah.
But they put in the loophole and have a capacity to learn. And that was their way of saying white folk. But what turned around, and we're just reading between the lines. And you can tell too that that's what happened. All the black folk attended. The number tripled. 11,682. So they had to shut it down. That's what happened.
Usually in those times, that's usually what would happen too.
Yeah.
You know, our people was looking for every advantage they could get.
Mm-hmm. He says, okay, the Methodist is the only denomination which has preserved returns of the number of colored members in its connection. I find it impossible to make any estimate of the number in connection with other denominations. The Methodists met with more success during this period in the middle and southern states than in the northern, and that's funny. And as they had paid particular attention to the Negroes, large numbers were brought under their influence. Yeah, that's funny.
And that's when you talk about middle. Is that talking about like the Midwestern states and southern states?
Yeah.
You know, those populations are mostly white.
Yeah. And those were the ones where I guess in the North they got hip to them games. You know, okay, they're gonna teach us to read, they're gonna do Sunday school. Now they doing this, they got hip to them games. It's like, we ain't with this.
Yeah.
Cause you know how our folk are, man. We the same.
Say as they paid particular attention to the Negroes, large numbers were brought under their influence.
Mm-hmm. Okay. It says the first Baptist church in this country was founded in the Providence, Rhode Island by Roger Williams in 1639. And it's funny, I went to a First Baptist church when I first moved, when I was like young. We moved to this town, Asbury Park in New Jersey. And there was a white church, First Baptist. And they had this bus that went around the town and picked up all the black kids and took us to their white church. You know, I went there for a few years. And then I think maybe from about 7 till I was about 9. That's when I first accepted JC. It might have continued on till I got about 11. And then I left church, period. But
that's funny because I never thought that the First Baptist Church was established in Rhode Island.
Rhode Island colony.
Yeah, you would have thought that would have been something more like in the South.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
It said nearly 100 years after the settlement of America.
Yep. Yeah. It says, and only 17 Baptist churches had arisen in it. See, I tell you, I went there, man, for a couple of years. I was a kid. I ain't go back to church again until I was like 30.
Wow.
Look, but after 100 years, they only had 17 churches. Hey, man, they ain't changed.
17 Baptist churches.
Yeah. But Okay, the Baptist Church in Charleston, South Carolina was founded in 1690. The denomination advanced slowly through the middle and southern states, and in 1790 it had churches in them all. Revivals of religion were enjoyed, particularly one in Virginia, which commenced in 1785 and continued into 1791 or 92. Thousands were converted and baptized, besides many who joined the Methodist and Presbyterian. A large number of Negroes were admitted to the Baptist churches during the seasons of revival, as well as on ordinary occasions. They were, however, not gathered into churches distinct from the whites south of Pennsylvania, except in Georgia. Brief notices of churches composed exclusively of Negroes will be given in the second period of this sketch. Before the Revolution, the Negroes in Virginia attended in crowds. The Episcopal Church, there being no other denomination of Christians of the consequence in the state. But upon the introduction of other denominations, they went off to them. Old Robert Carter, or Counselor or King Carter, as he was commonly called, among the richest men in the state, owning some 700 or 800 slaves. He was a billionaire during that time, and large tracts of lands, built Christ Church in Lancaster County, Virginia, and reserved 1/4 for his servants and tenants. He was himself baptized and afterwards emancipated a large number of his Negroes, okay, and living and living 14 or 15 years of Baptist, embraced and died in the faith of Swedenborg. The independence of the American colonies was acknowledged and peace established in 1783, and that probably didn't have to do with no him letting go a large number of Negroes. He probably or emancipated. I don't know what that had to do with. Yeah, maybe he did. Maybe he was a good man. I mean, I ain't even gonna say he was a good man, but maybe he did good by some. Put it that way.
Well, they say you hear that often, that it was some good ones,
Yeah, some good ones.
But
or maybe he gave so much in them damn times that he couldn't afford it. He was like, man, I gotta get rid of these. I mean, not to set them free.
He said he emancipated a large number of his Negroes.
Not all of them.
Large number of them.
Mm-hmm. Some he sold. Okay. The independence of the American colonies was acknowledged and peace established in 1783. The Articles of the Confederation of 1778 were superseded by our present Constitution in 1787, from the ratification of which to the present time our country has been rapidly advancing in prosperity.
Yeah.
I
think we can probably stop there, man.
All right.
I'll put a little mark here.
Yeah.
Yeah, so see that the Negroes has some tricks up their sleeve, according to them, in a lot of ways.
Yeah. But it shows also that with all their advancing of this the faith of Christianity, they could never trust us. They always had their eye on us, which goes back, you know what? Go back real quick to that letter of I forget that, the Belgian king, Leopold. Remember, he said he says you gotta always advance this thing, but with an eye on watching them. Yeah, letter King, Leopold, I call it Leopold. Scroll up some. Nah, you know what? Yeah, right there. Your knowledge of the gospel. He says that oh yeah, okay. He says evangelize, go down there to evangelize the niggers so that they stay forever in submission to
What part is that?
right where you're at. Okay. Where was I? Your knowledge of the gospel. I will make reference to their mystic. Your action will direct it to the. Yeah, okay. Right there. Your action will be directed essentially to the younger ones, for they won't revolt when the recommendation of the priest is contradictory to their parents' teaching. The children have to learn to obey what the missionary recommends, who is the father of their soul. You must singularly insist on their total submission and obedience. Avoid developing the spirit in the schools. Teach students to read and not to reason. There, dear patriots, are some of the principles that you must apply. You'll find many other books which will be given to you at the end of this conference. Evangelize the niggers so that they stay forever in submission to the white colonials, so that they never revolt against the restraints they are undergoing. And recite every day, happy are those who are weeping, because the kingdom of God is for them.
So we read that as a recurring theme in their letters, how they talked about how our forefathers were weak. They wept a lot at the hearing of their words.
And now we know what they were saying. Happy are those who are weeping. You know? So their main purpose was always to keep your eyes on the sky, so you didn't focus on the struggle that they were putting you through while down here.
I'll even say that they use that to their advantage in a way. They survived through it.
Yes. Oh yeah. See, that's the thing about our people. You know, no matter what the circumstances are, we can take the worst of situations. We will take the worst of situations, and the Most High has given us that ability to make the best out of it. We're survivors.
Amen. I want to thank Brother Yash for filling in and taking over tonight with the reading. You know I'm always doing it, so it's a blessing to have another brother on and fill in that regard. So let's break off for a second. When we come back, we're gonna close out. How you feeling, Brother Yash?
Oh man, I'm feeling blessed, man. This was good, this reading.
Yeah. So we, inching through this history, picking up more and more understanding as we go. Understanding the root of what we're dealing with today in terms of our quote unquote christening. All right. There was always a division. There was always limitations in terms of them teaching us and giving us understanding And it was always a motive behind the things that they taught our forefathers, our ancestors. It was for the whole purpose of keeping them subservient. So none of the information concerning the gospel was for the purpose of giving them true liberation and freedom, which we know is what the gospel is about concerning our people. But let's break off for a sec. When we get back, we're going to close out. Shalom and blessings. I'll be right back. I want to say shalom to everybody. Once again, I want to thank you for spending your time with us tonight with the Salt of the Earth. As always, I pray that your time spent with us is a blessing and and it's edifying. And I pray that the Most High rewards you for the time that's spent with us. Before we close out, I want to remind everybody about the upcoming work, Supersessionism Part 1. Hit your reminders for that, and also share it with everybody you know. And also, when you get a chance, go by and check out the site when you get some time, truehebrew.com. And if you see something you like, go ahead and get it for yourself. It'll be greatly appreciated as support, and it'll be something that you can receive back, for those who do decide to support. So once again, I want to thank you, brothers and sisters, in advance for that. You want to close out with something, Brother Yash? You got something you want to close out with?
I did, but I forgot when I started vibing out to that music. I was vibing, man. Oh, yeah, I was vibing. I totally forgot. But yeah, this is an important part of history that we're reading as they documented our conversions into this Christianity, along with the history that's went along with it. And see, I did lose my train of thought, man. I was vibing hard. Anyway, I'm glad to have everyone with us, as we read these things and go over them. We're all learning together. Sister Rochelle Yah's daughter said, this is like, it's hard, but it's beneficial for us to understand. And it's true. It's hard to hear these things, but it's important because this is a part. This is all of a part of what our ancestors went through, and most of these conversions weren't because they, as they try to put it, like we were hungry or we felt that we needed it. What our people needed at that time was a break. And Christianity was offering the hope of compassion being shown towards us. It just never turned out that way. And even though it was in idolatry, the Most High still preserved our ancestors through it. And it turned out to be actually he used it in what they used for our destruction actually turned out as a way for deliverance, because had we not been taught these things, our people probably would have wiped us out like they did the Native Americans, because surely we was fighting back even with it.
Yeah. It's definitely a level of respect, that we all should have for our ancestors. And we know not all of them were righteous, you know what I mean? But those that were, they did things, all the sacrificial things, like staying up all night praying and crying out to the Most High in dreadful ways, in ways that it put the slave masters in fear. the way that our people was crying out. And so they did a lot to separate us from that. You know, we were able to examine this record and see that some of that was happening, and they even documented that. So ever since we've been in this nation or brought to this nation, we've been one big experiment, you know, all throughout the ages, and they still can't figure us out. You know, even to the point of you hearing about melanin and how much melanin is per ounce, and all of the benefits of it, you know, what it's used for, saying that they can put it in computer chips and all of this kind of stuff. But that's just scratching the surface on things that they know about us that we don't even really know about ourselves. The most we know is that we the Most High's people. You know, but what does that mean? Is that spiritual? Like, we always talk about spiritualizing things. What does that mean, even down to our very bodies? You know, it's something they trying to figure out that, you know, they can't figure out. But we're going to keep digging and keep, you know, doing what the Most High lead us to do. You know, we're not trying to mislead anybody, or, you know, how people say you're trying to be negative and bring up the past. You know, what we're doing is we're going back to the root. You know, we're going back to the beginning to get an understanding of why we see what we see now, you know. So on that note, I want to thank you, brothers and sisters, once again. Hope everybody had a blessed day. You know, I hope everybody was able to rest up over the past couple of days. And now starts the work week for most. And so my prayer is that the Most High is with you, brothers and sisters, throughout the week until we meet again. You know, I may come back maybe Tuesday or so. But in any case, we got Brother Cleo Wednesday night, Kingdom Conversation. So I'm going to see you, brothers and sisters, there. Then we got the other programs throughout the week. But you want to say something else, Brother Yash?
Just shalom, family. Be safe out there.
Yeah. Be true, brothers and sisters. Be encouraged and be blessed. This has been a Salt of the Earth Productions. Hallelujah. Be blessed.
Everywhere I go, the children rising. Everywhere I go, the children rising. I saw them just rise up. The wicked running, I saw them just rise up.